Ever feel like you need a map and compass just to navigate support services in this city?
Oh, absolutely.
It can feel like a maze out there.
It really can.
And that's why we're diving into the world of OPWDD waiver services today.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to actually access these essential supports that help neurodiverse New Yorkers thrive.
I appreciate that our source material uses the term neurodiverse. It reflects a real shift towards inclusivity.
Right, like it's not about fitting into some narrow box.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that everyone's brain works a little differently.
Yeah.
And for some, that means needing a little extra support to live their best life, whether that's with finding a job, managing daily tasks, or just feeling comfortable and connected to their community.
And that's exactly what OPWDD, the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, is here to help with. Think of it as a connector, linking individuals to a whole network of services tailored to their needs.
We're talking community habilitation, respite care, day habilitation. But before we get ahead of ourselves, this source lays out a really clear path to accessing these services, like a step-by-step guide.
Okay.
And understanding those steps, that's what this deep dive is all about.
It can definitely feel like navigating a maze.
Yes.
So let's break it down together. The first hurdle is determining eligibility.
And this isn't as simple as just raising your hand and saying, I'm here. It actually starts with a formal application to OPWD, right?
You got it.
Okay.
It's called the OPWDD Eligibility Determination Application. Now, before you let the long name scare you off, just know that this is where having all your ducks in a row, documentation-wise, is key.
Okay, so what kind of documentation are we talking about? Doctor's notes, school reports, that sort of thing?
Exactly. We're talking detailed medical and psychological evaluations that clearly show the individual has a qualifying developmental disability. And two things that often trip people up. The condition needs to have been identified before the age of 22, and it needs to be something that's expected to last, long term.
That makes sense. So you've gathered your paperwork, you submit your application, and fingers crossed you're deemed eligible. What happens next? They hand you a stack of brochures and say, good luck.
Thankfully, no. This is where the front door session comes in.
Okay, front door. That sounds a little bureaucratic, I'm not going to lie.
I hear you, but think of it less like a sterile waiting room and more like a meet and greet. It's where you get to sit down with someone from OPWDD and really delve into what they offer and how those offerings can specifically benefit the individual.
So it's more about having a conversation and getting personalized guidance rather than just being handed a generic pamphlet.
Exactly. This is where you can ask those burning questions, lay out your specific needs, and really get a feel for how OPWDD can tailor its services to create a support system that actually works.
So it's like that initial consultation where you figure out if this is the right fit.
And just as importantly, it's where you get connected to your guide on this journey, the Care Coordination Organization, or CCO.
Okay, so we're finally at the CCO, our source kept mentioning. I'll admit, whenever I hear acronyms like that, my brain sort of glazes over. But this sounds like a pretty crucial piece of the puzzle, right?
Crucial is an understatement. Remember that maze analogy we used earlier?
Yeah.
Well, the CCO is like having a personal GPS system.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
So walk me through this. What makes the CCO so essential?
Imagine this. You've got this whole network of services, but they're all speaking a different language, using jargon.
Different forms, different processing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The CCO is like your translator,
Okay.
your advocate, and your guide all rolled into one.
So they help you cut through the red tape and actually understand what you're signing up for. Because let's be real, paperwork related to these kinds of services can be intimidating.
Absolutely. And it's not just about understanding the paperwork. The CCO works directly with the individual and their family to create something called a life plan,
Okay.
which used to be called an individualized service plan.
Life plan definitely sounds more, well, lively than individualized service plan, I have to admit. But what is it in a nutshell?
You know those vision boards people make?
Yeah.
Think of the life plan as a vision board, but for support services. It outlines the individual's goals, their aspirations, the things they want to achieve, and then maps out the specific services and supports that will help them get there.
So is it like a checklist? Get a job? Check. Learn to cook? Check.
It's way more dynamic than a checklist. It's a living document, constantly evolving as the individual's needs and goals change.
Can you give me an example of what that evolution might look like?
Sure. Let's say someone's initial goal is to find employment.
Ooh.
Their life plan might outline steps like enrolling in a day habilitation program to build job skills, getting connected to transportation assistance to get to and from work, maybe even accessing a job coach for on-the-job support. But then let's say after some time they realize they're really drawn to a more creative field.
Okay, I'm seeing where the evolving part comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan gets adjusted to help them explore those creative interests.
Exactly. Maybe they switch gears, try out an art therapy program, get connected with a mentor in a creative field, or even explore supported employment opportunities in a creative setting. The life plan is about meeting the individual where they're at and empowering them to chase their own vision of a fulfilling life, not some predetermined checklist.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like having a good life plan and a dedicated CCO to help you navigate it makes all the difference in the world.
I couldn't agree more. And this is where things get really interesting because the way these services are funded, particularly for those who qualify, is through something called HCBS waivers.
Okay, you warned me about the alphabet soup.
Oh.
HCBS waivers. Remind me what that stands for again.
HCBS stands for Home and Community-Based Services.
Okay.
These waivers are essentially agreements that allow OPWDD to use Medicaid funds to provide a wide range of support services for individuals living in their communities, as opposed to, say, an institutional setting.
So it's about keeping people connected to their communities while giving them the support they need to thrive within those communities. I can see how that would be so empowering.
It's all about fostering independence and a sense of belonging. Now, back to those waivers, there are actually different types of HCBS waivers, each with its own eligibility requirements and scope of services.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. What are some examples of these different types of waivers and what makes them unique? Different waivers, different services.
It's a lot.
It really is. It does make you wonder how anyone keeps it all straight.
You're telling me. It can feel like learning a whole new language, but that's another area where having a CCO by your side is invaluable. They can guide you through the maze of waiver options, helping you determine which ones best align with the individual's needs and eligibility.
It really highlights the importance of that personal guidance, especially when we're talking about something as crucial as accessing the right support services.
Absolutely. It's about making those connections, finding those resources, and feeling empowered to navigate the system.
Yes,
Not intimidated by it.
exactly.
And speaking of navigating the system, our source, very thoughtfully, provides contact information for the OPWDD front door offices right here in New York City.
Yes. I was hoping we'd get to that. Those contact numbers are like golden tickets, right?
They are.
A direct line to unlocking a world of support and resources.
Exactly. Think of it as the first step on your journey towards accessing these invaluable services.
So for those ready to take that step, and I know you're out there, let's make sure you have those numbers handy. For the Bronx, you can reach the OPWDD front door at 718-430-0757.
Brooklyn residents, your number is 718-722-4767. And for those of you in Queens, you can connect with them at 718-217-6485.
Manhattanites, you've got 646-766-3468. And last but not least, for Staten Island, the number to call is 718-982-9913.
Write them down, save them in your phone, post them on your fridge, whatever you need to do to keep them close.
Seriously, because even if you're not quite ready to dive in, just knowing these resources exist can be incredibly empowering. And beyond the practical, what really struck me about this whole deep dive is the way it reframes the conversation around support services. It's not about fitting into a mold, but about recognizing and celebrating the unique needs and aspirations of each individual.
Absolutely. And that's a message we need to keep amplifying. The more we understand about neurodiversity, the better equipped we'll be to create a society that truly values and supports everyone, regardless of how their brain is wired.
Kind of said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's remember that knowledge is power. And sometimes that power comes from simply knowing where to turn for help, for guidance, for support. If this episode resonated with you, even just a little bit, don't hesitate to reach out to those front door offices. You never know. It could be the first step on an incredible journey.